All right, welcome to episode number 59 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We're recording March the 15th, 2020. My name's Eric. I'm the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, I've witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events. I started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared and better look after themselves for at least 72 hours, if not longer. And that's still a pretty long intro.
Yes. Try my best. I'll try and shorten it more next time. My name is Ian, and I live on Vancouver Island. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, sport shooter, and my farm's designated handyman.
I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, security expert, and overall safety nerd.
I'm Gavin, TP and hand sanitizer hoarder, volunteer first responder, CCFR field officer, and instructor with Ragnarok Tactical.
My name is Tyler. I live in Northwest Wisconsin. Besides prepping, I'm also into homesteading, metalworking, engines, guns, and the great outdoors.
Hey, if you want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, you can buy a Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt at prepperpodcast.ca. All the proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
They are really comfortable t-shirts.
They are.
They are. If you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes to like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad, or if there's just a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some contagious content for you in this episode. But we're going to start off with some preparedness-related news articles. Next, we're going to let you know what we've done for preparedness since our last episode. And then we're going to get into the main topic, and that's going to be on the coronavirus.
I mean, there's really not much else to talk about right now.
There's nothing else.
No, there certainly isn't.
I mean, this is likely as close to an SHTF situation as we're ever going to see in our lives. Hopefully, anyways. The thing that I got aside, I'm not going to talk about stats and volumes of infections and all that stuff. The airports have put in new screening updates, and that's our big thing. So anybody coming back into the country from say Japan will have to go through a new set of screening before they're allowed back into the general public.
A little too late, isn't it?
Well, better late than never.
It's always a good idea to close that gate after the horse gets out, right?
Yeah. Well, that stops them from getting out again.
So are they just screening, or are they implementing a mandatory 14-day quarantine for everyone coming in? As
of current, there is no mandatory quarantine. It's all
okay.
Still
just screening for fever, basically.
Screening for fever. Yeah. Screening for whether they traveled through a hot zone as well.
Okay.
Mostly, I think it's going to give them an opportunity to kind of catalog the most at risk and track their movements through the course of their 14 days incubation period.
Right. Got it.
All right, so we will move into some news articles.
All right, so for myself, I had the first one we might as well talk about. 85% drop in cargo shipments to the Port of Vancouver right now. So the ships take about 2 to 3 weeks to cross the ocean. Well, since China shut down their factories, the ships stopped leaving the harbor. And now the little gravy train of ships has stopped. And yeah, it varies in stats, but up to 85% of the cargo ships have stopped coming in. Wow. So as the distribution centers dry up in a couple weeks, then I guess you're going to start seeing some shortages on the shelves.
Absolutely.
I already saw some this weekend.
Yep.
What did you see for shortages?
I mean, toilet paper and hand sanitizer for one. We're certainly lacking. in
Everybody's seen that one, but
I mean, certain places. I mean, it was weird because some would have stuff, some wouldn't. But like canned goods and like dry pastas and stuff like that would be completely gone. Like the meat section would be decimated. Especially like the beef and chicken. Pork was still somewhat abundant, but yeah, the pork and chicken, or the beef and chicken, were definitely like very, very low in everywhere I went into.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a combination with that swine flu they've been having, because like I think a quarter of the pigs have been killed off because of the swine flu in China as well.
Yeah, frozen vegetables were gone too. Frozen pizzas though, all of them still there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just waiting for the nuke to go off, right?
Yeah.
There's that perfect time and distance where all the frozen pizzas will be absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
The good news about toilet paper is a lot of it is actually produced domestically. There's a lot of paper products being produced in North America, so that will likely not be a long-term problem.
The only thing is the plastic packaging it comes in normally is made elsewhere. Like so, unless they want to start developing like a paper bag wrapping for it, which case is going to require a whole retooling of the factory to cover it in paper. There'll be a short-term problem because they'll have the product, they just won't be able to like send it out.
No, just
Maybe wrap the toilet paper in.
Yeah, it's maybe spend a couple extra rolls of paper towel and toilet paper just to wrap it together or something.
Yeah, just wrap the toilet paper in toilet paper, and you have more toilet paper.
And then charge triple for it.
Oh yeah, there
guys,
you go.
I think we need to sell this to Kimberly Clark.
Yeah,
and they'll pay for it. People will pay for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but for all you preppers out there, if you need a hack because you don't have it, you can take a thing of paper towel and cut it in half, and then you get 2 rolls of toilet paper.
Just don't flush it down the toilet.
Yeah, please don't flush it.
Well, unless you like your local plumber and want to support him.
Oh, true. Yes.
When he goes,
Yeah, but I don't want anybody coming to my house to fix things. I don't want strangers in my house.
Yeah. Or you hate your septic tank. If you hate your septic tank too, it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So yeah, what's the difference between hoarding and prepping? Just out of curiosity, anybody got a good definition of that for me?
Well, hoarding is a disease. Prepping is prudent.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One is done with a purpose. The other one leaves you with 500 rolls of toilet paper
and no food.
Prepping is something that's more realistic in nature than food, maybe a bit extra gas, extra battery or two.
One's a compulsion, I guess.
Yeah, hoarding is like the last minute panic buy or something, I guess. But interesting that there's an article for the next one I mentioned that they said hoarding is not essential. And they're talking about all the coronavirus hoarders. And I was like, first they start off with the toilet paper purchasers, which I agree with. It's just stupid. That's not the first thing you should really think about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then they turned around and said, well, people that have been prepping for years are just hoarders as well. And I'm like,
No,
not quite.
Well, so hoarding is specifically a collection of is typically defined as collection of a specific item for an unknown purpose. So somebody who hoards like old newspapers, right? There's no benefit to having those old newspapers around, but it's a compulsion for them to keep them around. That's hoarding.
Mm-hmm.
Having a good supply of things on hand is not hoarding. That's just a good idea.
Or unless you went looking for canned goods, you couldn't get anything, and the person that has them is now a hoarder in your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a good reason to take it from them, right?
Yeah. And then that's totally a good reason to start a fist fight with them in the grocery store.
Yeah, or draw a gun in Loblaws or stuff like that.
Totally fine, yeah.
Yeah. Makes total sense. I get it.
Yeah.
So the last news article I wanted to cover off was a very interesting one because, the government's been underplaying it, the media's been overplaying it, and now we got a bit of a crossover show because the Ottawa health minister there decided to say that we've only got, 10 cases of something in Ottawa? But as far as she's concerned, there could be at least 1,000, which I was like, oh, okay.
That's quite a jump from 10.
Yeah, I saw out of the blue, and she's like, yeah, actually, I think it's 1,000. But, we'll know soon enough. And I was just like, that's kind of out of the blue. I was expecting that from, like, CBC or CNN, but nope. So it's just an interesting one from a government official. So I put the link for that one as well.
Yeah. Only news article I had, I just included the link. So it was on Friday night. It was just after midnight, so I guess it was technically Saturday. But the House passed the Family's First Coronavirus Response Act. So this is kind of the second round of funding coming from Congress. So last week, I believe it was 8.2 or 8.3 billion released. So this is kind of the second round of that. And this legislation is going to provide paid leave, establish free testing, protect public health workers, and provide important benefits to children and families. So if anybody thinks they'll be impacted economically, this would be a good thing to go read, at least if you're in the States here, see if you would be eligible for any of that assistance.
Well, it's actually kind of funny to listen to because, like, our prime minister claimed that he would be supporting families that are losing income or, any expenses incurred because of self-isolation or whatever. But if people aren't working, they're not paying taxes, and that's the government's main source of revenue. So how are they going to pay for it? I guess borrow more?
Yeah.
Don't worry. The budget will balance itself. It's fine.
Yeah. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
China caused it. They should be paying for it, right? We'll just borrow from China but not pay back. That's not all.
I wonder how well that'll go over.
Yep.
Although hopefully anyone in the U.S. that is affected by any of this isn't in that town in Chicago, in Illinois, where the mayor recently prohibited the buying of alcohol and guns due to the coronavirus.
Yeah.
No fun allowed or what?
Yeah.
Never is in Illinois.
Yeah, you're on lockdown, so you're not allowed to buy alcohol or guns because public safety.
Yeesh.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Well, shall we move into what we've done lately for preps? I believe we have a sponsor for that.
Oh, hey, I'll do that. What we've done lately for preps brought to you by Superesse Straps. They make really cool stuff. Go visit their website, superessestraps.com. It's in the show notes, and order some stuff. Tell them we sent you.
Awesome.
Good tools. Fantastic toys.
So for myself, I've topped up some ammo, which I got a good chuckle when Canpar showed up while I was away at work, and my wife accepted the package. And as soon as I got home, she's like, "Of course you ordered ammo." Well, yeah, absolutely. Have you seen the news? Evaluated our current supplies and filled a few last-second gaps. No, it wasn't TP. Wasn't running off to the store to freak out over that. Tuned in the worldwide Hamnet on DMR on the Brandmeister 91 channel on Saturday there at 1600 hours UTC or 12 o'clock Eastern time. And I just listened to everybody report in from across the globe. So it was kind of neat to listen to everybody kind of checking in and talking about what's going on. If you want to see a list of everybody that did check in, it's published on a website. It's ac2he.com. And there's a whole list of everybody that checks in if you're kind of curious about what areas were covered off. And then my water distilling was finished. Somehow I think I did something wrong or maybe right because it turned into whiskey and cinnamon whiskey. So
Nice.
Yeah, don't know how that happened, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. And just topped up on some prescriptions and made sure we've got them all up to date and filled for a couple of months now. So nothing to worry about.
Did the pharmacist ask you anything about like going out to 90 days, or did they kind of hesitate? Because I've heard some stories that they're starting to like bulk a little bit about giving them out.
Yeah, I had no hiccups, no problems, nothing. Got it filled at Costco. Just walked in actually today, and they're like, "Yep, here you go, no problem. See ya."
Nice.
So.
Yeah, I had actually emailed into my doctor about 2 or 3 weeks ago, citing exactly my concerns for shortage supplies in prescription meds, and never even asked the question. Said, "Yep, your 90-day prescription's ready to pick up at the pharmacy tomorrow."
Yep.
So
That's
nice.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, as for myself, I decided to skip the TP run since we're already well supplied with that. We did it before it was cool, I guess. I don't know.
You just set the trend.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all your fault.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, that's actually kind of, we can't even use the Costco stuff because it's bleached paper, and the way it breaks down in the septic field, it actually like just gums up the whole system. So we don't even shop at Costco for TP. We actually have to get it from a cleaning supply house to make sure the septic tank stays happy. So anyway, I went on a feed supply run. So I went to the feed store, and unlike Costco, it was not light up for miles around. It was empty. And so I had a good chat with the feed store people, and they said it's been busier than normal, but yeah, again, just like Alan was saying, like feed is for the most part produced domestically, so not a big deal. But I thought just so I don't have to go out a lot. I thought we get a little ahead of the game on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you had a bunch of eggs I had to wash up and sell off, so I got caught up on some egg sales, which was good. And actually, I just touched base with the egg customers saying, "Hey, listen, there's never going to be a shortage on our end. We're just ramping up production. So if you guys are short on food, let me know. We got lots for sale." So that was good, and I got a couple extra orders out of that. Checked in on the parents and neighbors. So I had a little meet and greet with the one neighbor at the fence who maintained like a 3-meter separation. And it's kind of funny because he offered me a beer, and I was like, do I or don't I? It's one of those things.
Corona?
It was not a Corona.
I had to.
You're fine then. Yeah. You're fine.
Yeah. So we talked about him and his supply, and he knows I'm on the podcast here and stuff. So we talked a little bit about that, and they're squared away. They used to live up in the high Arctic, so yeah, they're better than the average Joe for supplies, and he's a hunter as well, and he's got plenty of wild meat in the freezer and stuff, so he's good. I checked on my parents, which was also important because they're of the target audience for the coronavirus, age-wise and health-wise. So asked them if they'd made sure that they've got enough to, weather the storm and not go out all the time. But of course, my mom was raised in rural Saskatchewan in the 50s, so yeah. Like jarred goods is kind of their thing. So they've got a full freezer, full pantry, full everything. So they're not going anywhere for a while. So that's good.
Nice.
Let's see here. I did a couple CGN deals. I took possession of a couple new toys and sold one off. Assembled a long distance rifle. I thought I'd get into long distance shooting with a couple of the guys from Patriot Podcast there. So we have some more stuff in common to talk about. And I actually got an offer from one of the local long distance shooters to take me out to give it a try. So
Nice.
was unable to make the schedule work this week, but I'll try and do it next week.
Nice.
But I put together a nice 700 Remington 700 long distance rifle with a little specialized chassis for it. See here, service the Berkey. So last set of filters I got from Eric there, they're coming to about halfway through their service life, I think. So I, stripped apart the Berkey, took the toothbrush, scrubbed off the filters, made sure everything's still working good, so I don't have to worry about that for the next few months. I did go to Costco. I picked a time that was not busy, and I just thought I'd just do a little recon trip. And yeah, took a couple pictures of the paper towel signs and the toilet paper sign saying, sorry, no luck. And I asked the guy about it. He said, basically, if you're not there within the first 10 minutes, you're not going to get any, which made me kind of giggle. But I had more important goals to get. I had to get peanut butter. My wife just took off on a trip and left me behind. So I took a look at the storage locker there to see what we have. And I did the first thing I texted her when she got to where she was going was like, how am I supposed to survive the corona apocalypse here without peanut butter? So
valid question.
Yeah, so had to go pick up a few jars of that. That's the only thing I'm guilty of hoarding right now is like a few jars of peanut butter. So,
but that's not hoarding. That's with a purpose.
That's with a purpose, right? Yeah.
Well, I guess that depends on what a few jars is. I mean, if you've got 500, then
yeah,
True.
that might be hoarding. But no, it's like it's comfort food. That's all it is. And so then I got invited at the very last minute to be a guest on Slamfire Radio this week. So that was kind of cool. And we got to talk.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, it was good. They were, we had some good giggles about their plans for the apocalyptic boogaloo here for the coronavirus, and it was pretty good. Adriel's already got plans to eat his neighbors right off the bat, and he's pretty much got them figured out in sequential order which one he's going to do first, and going to paint himself up in silver spray paint and go to town. So I was like, hey, as long as you got a plan, right? As long as you got a plan, that's good. So yeah, it was good. That was the first time on Slamfire for me. Let's see here. What else did we do? Ordered some projectiles. The wife actually and I had a chat about the smelter issue, and there's no smelters left in the U.S. for lead, and there's a few secondary ones in Canada. That's what it. So most of the lead smelters are in China, of course, and with supply chains being what they are, I thought maybe projectiles might become an issue, and we got proven right this week, it seems. So I got a couple thousand
not
projectiles.
just projectiles. I mean, people have been buying up ammo like crazy.
Well, yes, there was a Nothing Fancy video, another Ammo-geddon going on down in Utah, right? And
well, not even across Canada. I was talking to Trevor the other day, and he was saying that 60,000 projectiles in one day out of the store that he works at.
Wow.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be limited, unlimited demand and limited supply. So pretty sure there's going to be shortages, and then it'll be like the Obama years where somebody sees a box of 22, they're going to grab everything they can there. And then so the next guy comes along and he's out, and then when he sees it, he'll grab everything that's there next time. And
it's going to be the TP thing all over again, but for ammo.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So I was happy I did that. So anyway, did some minor bits of reloading here. 3 trips to the range this week, which was nice. Vacation was awesome. So I got to try out. I had a horrible failure with the long distance rifle right off the bat because it turns out the scope rail was busted. So I had to go fix that up. See here on the homestead here, I disassembled an old chicken coop, and I had to transform, like I'm clearing out that space and taking the area where the chickens had pooped for the last 3 years and giving it about 6 months now for the poop to mellow. And I'm going to turn that into a little garden. So I just got to re-fence it off, make sure the alpacas can't get in, plant some potatoes, do stuff like that. So that should be just in time for the fall, hopefully, like for harvest. And let's see here. I did some lumberjack work here a couple weeks ago, so I decided to pick up those logs, get them ready for the splitter, all that stuff. Changed the oil of the car, fixed a flat on the backup generator wheel for the trailer there it's sitting on. Talked to the mag in Calgary and a couple other places on the DEF CON level. And I actually talked with a few of the guys here on the podcast, what their thoughts are. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been getting a lot of messages from like listeners and stuff, more so than normal. And guys that didn't even think listen to the show. A lot of coworkers, everything else, been getting a lot of listener messages, and I guess we're getting noticed, or maybe it's just timely, I guess.
Everybody wants to know what to stock up on, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like that. Remember that $500 episode we did? I put that list on Google Docs, and I've had like, I bet you it's at least 10, 12 people asking for the link so they can send it to a bunch of the people they know. So I'm like,
that's good.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah, do your thing. Like, better than nothing.
Yeah,
so
our stats are progressively getting higher and higher. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's about it for me.
I mean, as long as you were only doing a couple of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Yeah,
like next week I'll have even more done. It'll be even
Can
crazier.
you
Pretty
try to
light
do a
week.
few-
Yeah.
Can you try to do a few more things for the next next episode, Ian? Because
I
that wasn't
will.
nearly enough.
Try to overachieve next week. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
So I feel so inadequate by comparison. Topped up some supplies. We've decided that every time we go into town, we add something to the pantry. Just today, took down a few trees in the backyard. Preparation to start our big raised bed garden that we're planning in the spring. Found a nail in my tire and patched that. Otherwise, I've been stocking up on supplies to keep me busy should I be sequestered. I've got a whole bunch of home projects that we've been putting off, and if we don't have any excuse to not do them, then perhaps I should have the materials here. So got the garage kind of jam packed full of lumber and bits and pieces, and get some work done around the house if it comes to pass that I've got a lot of spare time on my hands.
Yeah, so for me, probably the same as everybody else. Kind of topped off my fresh food supply, like bread, milk, fruits, veggies, things that that expire quickly. Fortunately, a few weeks ago, I'd taken the time to stock up on canned goods, kind of build up the pantry a little bit. On top of that, I also got comfort food, chocolate, taffy, those sorts of things, and also some beer and alcohol because I think I'll be stuck at home for a while, and that makes things a lot more fun. Like Alan, purchased some building materials, some lumber, so I can do some projects around the house, assuming that I'm stuck at home for a while. Topped off all my fuel reserve, filled the cars, filled up the gas cans. In case you guys haven't noticed, gas prices are kind of dropping pretty quick, so now's a good time to fill up. And then as I was going to work this week, something I did, I reached out to the owners of my company, requesting stricter hygiene practices and certain protocol be followed by all employees. So I was asking that everybody that enters the building wash their hands immediately before clocking in, touching the computer. We have like a shared shop fridge. So I didn't want people, putting their lunches in the fridge and touching everything. And just asking that people, instead of running out during lunchtime to get lunch out in the public, I asked that everyone pack their own lunches. And seemed like that everyone took my concerns pretty seriously. So I was pretty happy to see that.
Good.
Maybe you'll get some coworkers to finally wash their hands after going to the bathroom.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, don't push it.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Hey, what I do in the bathroom is no one else's business but my own, Ian.
Yeah. It's kind of actually, I got a feedback request card. So I was at my workspace there last week, just before I went on vacation. And for the first time in probably 10 years, I swear to God, my workspace had actually been cleaned up by the actual professional cleaners. And they said, "Hey, can you leave us a feedback card?" I'm like, first time in 10 years. And he wants to give you feedback and say that you're doing a great job. Like, seriously, now?
Well, I mean, it's 100% improvement, right?
That's a good
It
point.
technically
Good point.
is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, previous 10 years we've been doing it ourselves with little, Kleenexes and everything else. But now, no.
Yeah, no, I guess like everyone else, I topped up on some supplies. I was already pretty decently stocked for myself, but my girlfriend will be moving in with me this week, so wanted to make sure that we were both good if we go on lockdown. So yeah, beefed up the canned goods and dry goods and stuff like that, and picked up some extra, ground beef that I can throw in the fridge and the freezer. Didn't buy any ammo because I'm pretty well stocked already, but did certainly load all of my mags and have them all organized. Cleaned a few guns to make sure that they're in good working order. I'm also in the middle of building a precision rifle, but not for myself, but for my girlfriend Angela, because she didn't have one. Fortunately, Andrew from Canadian Patriot Podcast was good enough to sell us his old Remington 700.
Nice.
Yeah, filled the car with gas, little things like that. Ventured out into the public to see the crazy. It was a lot of fun if you like people watching.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it certainly. What's the opposite of renewed my faith in humanity?
Yeah.
Stomped on it and spit on it.
Just confirmed your lack of faith in humanity.
Yeah, like seeing the people and what they're stocking up on, and it's just like, I waited an hour in line for like my half of a cart's full of stuff, and there would be people with 2-3 carts full of stuff and full of like perishable food items. Or like cases upon cases of water, which, we know that water is important, but also like running water isn't being threatened right now.
Well,
it's not right now, but
pop and
Yeah.
chips are a comfort food, but they're not a survival staple.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, but it's
And
amazing.
a cart full of toilet paper, like that's not gonna do anything for you in the long run. Plus, there's a million other alternatives.
And in order to use that toilet paper, you need to have food first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure when somebody stumbles across an emaciated corpse, they're not going to say, "Hey, is that butthole clean?" Just out of curiosity. Like,
yeah.
no, nobody cares.
You never know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like
centuries from now, anthropologists will come wandering through North America.
yeah. Curious how they all died. Yeah.
They'll see all these people who have just like dropped where they were from this horrific disease, and they'll go, man, what really clean buttholes.
Yeah, except that, you know what the funny thing is going to be is like this whole corona thing blows over, but then we get some other weird disease because our buttholes were so clean and like wiped raw that like that's where we get it from, like,
And that's what ends the world.
yeah.
The next evolution is going to be this horrific like bloodborne pathogen that happens when we've wiped ourselves raw, we've started to bleed, and then we've still shat through it anyways, and then we just get sick.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now that we've scrolled off down that path, how about we move on to the main topic of the show?
I thought that was the main topic.
That was the main topic.
Yeah.
Used to be for everyone else.
Yeah.
Geez. So we're going to do a little bit of a different format for this evening. We are going to be talking about coronavirus, just like we have been for the last 26 minutes or so. But we're just going to open it up to a round table for all the panelists, and we're just going to discuss kind of what we've seen in our respective areas, and not that we've already kind of touched on a little bit, but what we're doing to stay prepared, and just basically what we're seeing, because we're all kind of spread across the country. So it's kind of neat to see what everybody's seeing, I think.
Well, but even before we go there, actually, I got just a question for everybody, kind of answer that as they see fit. But there's like talk of Italy having a more virulent strain than China. Do you think that's actually the case, that they're having a more violent strain than that? Or is it just a case of China drastically underreported their numbers and Italy showing the real, casualty rate and, are not and everything else?
I think both are underreporting. I think we have two really different dynamics, right? I think if you look at the average age of the populations, you're going to see that Italy is older and probably more densely populated as a country. There are fewer big gaps like China has, and I think so. You're seeing a faster spread, and you're seeing a more severe reaction because you've got a generally more aged population, and I think that China is also severely underreporting.
Yeah, so I've actually ran the numbers here off of the Worldometer's kind of live coronavirus tracker. So right now, China's got roughly a 3.9% death rate. Italy's at 7.3, Iran 5.19, South Korea 0.92, Spain 3.72, Germany 0.19, France 2.34, and the USA is 1.85. And I guess what I take out of that is the numbers are all over the place, and we just don't have a kind of good enough data set to really draw any conclusions from it all. I think we know testing has definitely been an issue, especially here in the United States, and there is most likely, or almost certainly, thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of cases out there that are walking around that aren't being tested. So until those numbers get included into the data sets, we can't really draw any accurate conclusions, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat there. I figure the numbers coming out of China weren't accurately reported off the hop, and still aren't being. As far as Italy goes, I figure for the most part the numbers are accurately being reported, but of course they're going to want to hold back some as well, because they don't want to make it look like it's as bad as it could potentially be. Yeah, the same kind of thought. The metrics just aren't there. We don't have a way to record everything accurately yet, and I think we're still kind of working through a system to accurately report on things and capture the data and report on it properly.
I think the one thing we can say for sure is the demographic of people that it affects most. It's certainly the elderly, and especially those with underlying health conditions. It seems that is certainly the case. It seems that children are not being affected nearly as much, if at all.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one good thing. But
yeah, I mean, the death rate goes as high as 20% if you're over 80, and then down to like 0.001% if you're under 10. So it's just like, I mean, it's not zero, but it's certainly dang close to it, right?
And again, if you're not taking into consideration the other physiological factors, right? If that child has an underlying condition, even one that's undiagnosed, then that can skew the actual results.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what we don't know far exceeds what we do know, and it's going to take probably years before we have an accurate data set.
Yep.
I mean, one thing though, like comparing them. So I know a couple of weeks ago, everyone was laughing at a story that was making the rounds on Facebook where like a local town or whatever, when you turn the taps on, wine from the local vineyard was pouring out of them in Italy. And like, oh, it's like, haha, that's really funny. How does wine get into the public water supply?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. So like that, like it's funny when it's wine. It's not funny when the whole country is on lockdown because of a virus. And like, so if wine can get in, other contaminants can get in and help spread things like this. So, I mean, you wonder why they're maybe seeing a more rapid sort of, exposure rate. Well, maybe that's why, is because their public health infrastructure and everything is lacking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that I imagine that China has the best, especially rural China, but I mean, I imagine some of the cities are a little bit more sophisticated, whereas like the entirety of Italy is built upon the remains of all of the other stuff, and they're still using Roman, aqueducts and everything to move water around. So probably not the most hygienic way to do that.
And one of the main reasons Rome had the issues it did towards the end was using lead pipes.
Yeah.
So that's the Roman Empire fell because people had lead poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I mean that's it, and yeah. So we've got two really different systems overall, right, and two really different types of populations, and so I think that's why we're seeing two fairly different results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think at this point we can probably all agree that I mean, quarantine is certainly going to help to mitigate, but this thing is going to have to run its course through both the U.S. and probably Canada at this point. I don't think you guys are reporting nearly the numbers we are down here, but at this point, the best we're hoping for is to, you kind of always hear it, they want to flatten the curve, so we're not overwhelming healthcare systems, and we still have the the necessary ventilators in place for those people that are critical, and that's going to certainly reduce the death rate that we'll see. But
well, cases per million, we're actually almost tied. We're at 9 per million right now, and you're at 11. So I mean, like, the case count per capita is on par. Pretty much.
Right, and that's probably the biggest thing that scares me is just the dense population centers. Even like myself, although I live in Northwest Wisconsin, it's a rural community. I commute to the cities. I work just 10 miles east of the Twin Cities, which is population of 3.5 million. It's like the 16th largest in the United States. So that's a really dense population center, and they are starting to show. We've got, as of right now, 35 cases in Minnesota, and they are all centered directly around the Twin Cities. And testing is just not in place quite yet. And I was kind of a little late to get on the podcast here. They're actually just giving a live update on what's going on there.
More importantly, when you have a dense concentration of cases, those ICU beds that they have to spare, which aren't many to begin with, usually they're running at capacity all the time because that's the way our healthcare system is designed to pretty much run it at normal ops at 100% or more. And so if you have all of a sudden an extra 50, 60 cases in one area, it's going to overwhelm the system as is. And there's only so many healthcare workers, so many beds, so many ventilators. Then you're going to have people dying unnecessarily because they just don't have something like an oxygen bottle that might have normally saved them.
Exactly. And we're kind of, or at least I'm hearing reports of that going on in Italy. They're kind of triaging people off. Somebody who's younger who needs that respiratory device to stay alive, they might pull that from somebody who is elderly, regardless of whether they have the virus or not, just because the kind of the morality of it makes sense, I guess, is terrible.
Anyways, they're probably not going to recover, so let's save the people who can.
Exactly. And all we can hope for, it doesn't come to that point, but it seems like we might be headed in that direction.
Well, it's the principle of triage is that you save savable lives, and if somebody is emergent or expected to die, or expected to shuffle off their mortal coil, then you don't waste resources on them. And I use the term waste in a very kind of cavalier manner, but you're not
Right.
using resources that would divert from somebody who has a high probability of surviving because somebody or on somebody that has a low probability of survival.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one of the things I read today, one of the challenges that they're seeing is that the standard approach within the medical community for somebody having a respiratory issue, such as COVID-19, is to use a nebulizer and a non-rebreather mask with supplemental oxygen. The challenge with that is it creates a higher volume of droplet spread. So instead of just normal respiration, it's now a powered respiration, and so the virus that you have is being spread further, through the rooms, through the ambulances, right through the
Mm-hmm.
it's contacting more surfaces and more people than it would if you hadn't used that nebulizer. So that's one of the challenges that they're having to overcome, is that the standardized treatments for that individual might actually be making the community worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody, two people who report to the ER, one with respiratory symptoms, one without, the person without the respiratory symptoms may be exposed unnecessarily because of the standardized treatment.
Yep. And it seems like a good portion of the kind of the limited amount of testing going on in the States is because of that. They are kind of trying to get a system that is set up so people are being tested outside of facilities, outside of hospitals. They're pushing for drive-through or walk-through testing, and they're actually working with the CEOs of Walmart and Target and CVS and Walgreens to set up drive-through testing in those locations, so those people that potentially have the virus are not walking into their local hospitals or healthcare providers and then infecting those that are already compromised because they have other underlying respiratory issues or whatever it might be. But
which is why they're visiting the doctor in the pharmacy in the first place.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So
yeah, drive-through testing, that's an interesting way of doing it.
Yep. And it sounds like this upcoming week. So they gave a live update just before we came live here on the podcast. And just as of today, so the Federal Reserve lowered rate from 1.1 to 1.25. They lowered it down to 0 to 0.25. They're also buying $700 billion in Treasury and mortgage-backed securities. The CDC has recommended that events of 50 people or more not be held for the next 2 months.
Wow.
And then finally, they also kind of reiterated what's going on with the testing. So as of now, there is testing available in all 50 states. However, this is only, for the most part, being done at state labs or CDC centers. And they're using manual collection methods and manual processing methods. And they reported that's capable of only about 40 to 60 tests per day. So that's why we're seeing such low testing numbers still coming out of the states. Within the last 72 hours, they have pushed through fast approval of high output testing. They're supposed to be, as of this upcoming week, they're going to have drive-through or walk-through capable of 2,000 to 4,000 tests per day. And that's the reason it took so long, is because they needed to get all the necessary protective gear. They needed to set up the tents. They needed to get the linkages in place to get those tests back to the healthcare system to actually conduct the testing. This is all working based off of oral or nasal swabs, to my understanding. So it's a logistics issue mostly at this point. The testing capabilities are there, but it's how do we get these people tested without bringing them into the hospitals, overwhelming the system as is, and compromising people. So that's why it's taken so long to get these drive-through testing systems set up. And it sounds like this upcoming week is finally going to be the week that they really get those online. And I think they said 2,000 facilities will be set up this upcoming week with 1.9 million available tests. So it's going to be interesting to see how the numbers grow this upcoming week.
Yeah.
It's funny how they still try and prioritize or tie together the economy with an actual health crisis. I know they're trying to prevent panic in the stock market. I get we've had another Black Friday here, but I mean, does the coronavirus really care if we lower the interest rate down to 0? It's two separate issues, right? The herd mentality in the stock market and actual people getting sick are two things to tackle differently, but they try and tie it together to do a double header, I guess.
Yep.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but you just said that there are going to be approximately 2,000 centers set up.
Yep.
That are each going to be able to process approximately 2,000 people a day.
Yep. 2,000 to 4,000 per day.
Okay. And you
4
said there's
million.
1.9 tests of it, 1.9 million tests available.
This upcoming week, they said they have allotted 1.9 million tests available.
So that's
they're still manufacturing those tests, and they'll. I guess they didn't
daily
specify,
capacity per week. So I think it's a great idea.
Mhm.
I think that the execution, it leaves a little bit to be desired, because that's 4 million people per day can be tested, but only 1.9 million tests per week can actually.
Right.
It's governmenting. I mean, that's what that is.
Yep.
It sounds nice in theory until you actually put the math behind it, and then.
Yeah.
And then it's five round magazine capacities, but
Yeah.
That's okay. Like one of the listeners mentioned that they went and bought a cordless angle grinder yesterday, so they're all set.
Yeah, good to go.
Hand drill, like power, no battery required hand drill. It's always good too. Yeah. Question from Ivan: is current technology pigeonholing us into treatments that are too expensive to mass produce?
Oh, that's a big that's a big, broad, sweeping question. I think our probably biggest challenge is that most of the places where the treatments are being produced is China, and they don't have the people to produce things currently.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably our biggest challenge.
Yeah, our dependency on global supply chains is, I think, what's going to really kill us in the long run.
Yeah, that's definitely screwing us.
Speaking, I want to circle back to one little thing too before I forget, though. India, of course, tries to produce whatever China can for pharmaceuticals. They still get their ingredients from China. I get that, but interesting that India is only showing 12 cases for the entire country of over 1 billion. I just find that hard to believe when they're so close to China. But anyway, his actual question, though, it is pigeonholing us into treatments that are too expensive to mass produce. By the same token, though, we're also not dying at 30 anymore. So, I mean,
right.
the double-edged sword of these treatments is that they allow us to live way longer than we used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But they're a little more convoluted than like leeches and bleeding. When they go to the barbers to get bled out to make yourself feel better. Like, take the good with the bad, I guess, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier if China would give us access to that biological warfare center where the whole thing came out of. But
It'd be swell. But, I do believe you
I
probably
love you, Kevin.
you can probably find a sample in Winnipeg, I'm sure. But
yeah,
that's where they got theirs, right?
I mean, not to get my tinfoil hat on or anything.
Well, no one wears tinfoil hats around here.
Yeah, because they're all sold out at tinfoil.
Not on camera.
Yeah.
I think it can definitely go without, certainly like down in the States, FDA regulations have definitely slowed down the process at which we can take on these sorts of crises and react to them. When you have so many strict regulations in place about how you do things and how things are processed and how things are handled, that's certainly going to slow the process. So maybe not so much as the technology behind it, but it just kind of everything seems to be regulated to death down here, especially when it comes to healthcare. And that's all necessary when everything's humming along just fine and things are normal. But then when you're faced with a crisis like this, the system just isn't set up to handle it. And it takes time to recognize which regulations are slowing the process down and then eliminate those. And that's been another big part of it.
But I mean, would you really want, like, if someone goes, I've got the cure for the coronavirus, it's 2 weeks old, would you really want to try it? Like,
well, exactly. And it's a matter of finding that line, finding the balance and everything else. But
the challenge is the consequences, right? Like if we rush this vaccine or this cure into production and it turns out that we didn't grow it out enough or we didn't test it enough, and then instead of a coronavirus that is going to run its course and a few people might get sick, we end up with this like super zombie mutant virus, then I mean we have the I Am Legend problem, right? Where they thought they found the cure for cancer and it was this great thing, and then all of a sudden we had a world full of zombies. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have those regulations in place, and overall they do a good job. And just like Gavin said, do you really want this thing that all of a sudden we didn't know what this was 3 months ago? It usually takes 2 years to create a vaccine, and then all of a sudden we've got something that works that defies all logic in terms of what we know about creating vaccines. I'm with Gavin. I don't trust that.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I agree completely.
Well, there's-
too, yeah.
There was
I mean,
actually. I'm not saying I'm anti-vax or anything else, but I'm just saying like back in the 70s, there was actually a vaccine that was rushed too fast. I can't remember, was it polio or was it? It was one of the ones. Anyways, they actually had to pull it because they started giving it to people. It killed like 1 in 10. they pulled it out because they didn't do any proper testing on it because they were so worried about getting the vaccine to market that they didn't. They ended up like just saying, "Whoa, that was actually a bit of a mistake. We'll take that one back and we'll put a better one in like a year later."
Mhm.
So yeah, you don't want to rush it because I mean, if the cure is worse than the actual disease, where the disease rate has a 3% death rate and the vaccine has a 20% death rate, you got a problem, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and back to the question, I don't think the technology is pigeonholing us. I think the bureaucracy is, but
Yes.
I don't
Well,
necessarily think that the bureaucracy is a bad thing in this case. I'm sure there's a balance between getting the product to market appropriately and testing it properly first.
Mhm.
If anything, the technology is going to help us in the long run.
Yep.
I've got another interesting comment here in the live chat from Jay. Just says the panic can be worse than the disease.
The panic is always worse than the disease.
Yeah, I am
Absolutely. We saw that with the toilet
100%
paper
agree
run.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not scared at all of getting the coronavirus, and for all I know, I could potentially have it. I was in the UK right before they kind of shut the borders. I came back and I got a cold, and it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and like I'm starting to feel fine now, so I'm not really worried about it.
Mhm.
And I'm not worried about it if I do actually get it from somebody else. I'm worried about the crazy people, panicking now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's already been guns pulled at the stores and fistfights, and this is like there are still resources available.
Right.
If this actually turns out to be something like really serious, or just the panic increases and not necessarily the severity of the actual virus, that's what I'm worried about, is the people that like didn't get toilet paper but are already prone to violent action now go, well, I'm all out of TP and can't wipe my butt, so I already robbed people, so I may as well go rob some TP from some people, right?
Yeah.
Those are the
That's
people
gonna be a
I'm
problem.
worried about.
Yeah, that's been as of just the last few days, kind of the focus of my preparedness is how can I hunker down here at home and protect myself, because I would suspect that relatively soon we'll see an increase in robberies and break-ins. We know that law enforcement is going to be preoccupied with enforcing any quarantines or setting up these testing facilities. They're going to be in the cities manning those. They're not going to be out here in the rural areas.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a food bank in Alberta that already got robbed, like last night, I think it was.
Yeah, in Edson, Alberta, there's some real fine individuals there for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's already happening.
Right.
And like we're not even in a critical situation where supplies are scarce. They're out there. It's just that people have hoarded them because they're idiots.
Yeah, and at this point, a good majority of the supply chains are still intact. Across the states and across Canada, the trucks are still shipping products. What happens if this thing continues to spread and they start to limit that? That's when it's going to really get interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we start shutting down our borders, and especially if we shut down the border to the U.S., I think we're going to be screwed, because I mean, if good chunk of everything we buy comes in from the U.S. So,
and they also provide us with a lot of our cash too. Like if we're shipping stuff south, whether it be softwood or whatever, Alberta oil, the usual.
Yeah.
Stuff. That's super cheap Alberta oil, I guess, right now. But,
yeah. If it's not bad enough that we've got like a crazy pandemic, our economy continues to go into the crapper, which yay, cheap gas, but also not good for the economy.
No.
Well, cheap gas for you guys. My gas is still at the $1.49 level.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I'd offer to send some to you, but
I haven't seen significant price drops here, at least not like a lot of other places, but I just didn't want to be out in the public, so I took advantage of my time this weekend to fill them up.
The cheapest I saw here today was about 78 cents.
I have not paid that little for gas in a very long time.
No, me either.
Like early 2000.
Yeah, it's I'm not sad about it for myself, but it's it's a it's a sign of the real challenges that we're seeing.
Yeah.
So Ivan brought out the example of ventilators for hospitals. They didn't exist 100 years ago. Everyone did back then. Did everyone needing one just die, or was it an old world solution? Well, they had the iron lung before that.
Yeah, and before that there was literally a bellows was used to provide artificial respiration. But I mean, 100 years ago, the average lifespan was 38 or 39 years or something, right?
I think people tried menthol with steam, like get a bottle underneath it, a towel, and vent.
Hey, that is hugely effective. I absolutely love that when I'm saying.
Just don't do it like the Crocodile Dundee, where you put the guy's cocaine in it and then ruin it.
But cocaine was also used. Right?
It was also in Coca-Cola.
Yeah. But I mean, there were other solutions, and I mean, we can go back to the Dr. Bones episode that we had. What was that, 4 or 5 episodes ago?
Yep.
Their book, Survival Medicine, right? If you just read the introduction, and what they did when they were writing that book was go back to medical texts that were 100 years old. If you apply the techniques that they used 100 years ago with the technology and knowledge we have now, you've got a really effective, system. Will it be like a mask or a nebulizer would probably speed the recovery? Is it an absolute requirement? Probably not. But it's just been kind of a standard, and I was using that as kind of one example. But it's been a standard of operation because it provides the best care to that person as quickly as possible, which is the basic model of most hospitals, is to do the best good for as many people as possible as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, I certainly think there's a lot of like old wives' tales out there that are just that and absolute garbage. However, there are some that have that little nugget of truth in them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And most of those old wives' tales started with something true and it got perverted. And so if you go back and trace the source out, you can find exactly how that started and where it started, and make it real and make it practicable instead of just that putting just leeches and maggots do good work.
I know someone that used leeches to treat a giant gaping wound, and it worked.
Yes, I would imagine we're probably thinking of the same person. It was a dog bite, right? A few years ago.
Yes.
So we're probably talking about the same person, and we have a lot of people in common. Use leeches and maggots to solve that problem. When the provincial government, like the healthcare system, was planning on just changing wounds and dressings for 5+ years.
Yeah. I mean, they healed up in like no time.
Yep.
It was unbelievable. So like it works, and there's lots of weird things that work. But some technology stuff is good.
Yep. Well, that's right. And there's a time for the newest, best technology, and there's a time to go back to the old world. And there's some things that haven't changed in that time. I mean, we've changed the technique of CPR a little bit over the years. We've tweaked based on knowledge, but the fundamental technique of blood goes round and round, air goes in and out hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So we've applied old techniques with new knowledge, and we've got a better result with the same thing, right? The technology hasn't changed much, just how we apply it. So, I think we're gonna see that, right? I think we're gonna, the takeaway that we're gonna get from this outbreak, like this pandemic. I think the big takeaway is that the best way isn't always the best way. Right? The traditionally accepted method is not always the best way to solve the problem.
Yep.
Although I was actually in my local surplus store today, not to get anything, just because I like to poke my head in there every now and again. And I was talking to the guy behind the counter, and he raised an interesting point. He said, like, if this had happened, 15, 20 years ago, when prepping wasn't like a thing, like there was a handful of people that did it. But now with like all the TV shows and like the amazing podcasts, that are out there, that are and books, like there's so many more people that are aware that like this is a thing you should do, but still look at how many people are unprepared. Could you imagine? Like,
it'd be a complete zoo.
Yep.
But actually, Bane Ironhand and Steve Brown are going to combine these two. Actually asking what the government's going to do in response to panic and riots. Well, the first thing the government have done in various provinces, not all of them yet, is cancel post-secondary schools and K-12 the rest of the year. but they didn't tie that in with a order to stay home. So all these students,
Yeah.
they're going to go run around, go to the mall, and everything else to have a great
Yeah.
time. But I mean, it was good in sentiment, but I don't think in practice it's going to be very effective because it's not
Yeah.
isolating.
No, in Ontario, they've canceled it for 3 weeks, I guess, with the idea of, okay, March break coming up this week. Everyone's going to travel, do their thing, come back and quarantine for the 14 days.
Yeah.
The problem is people are just moving their trips and their plans ahead a week because it's cheaper, because it's not March break. And then that quarantine time is gone.
But they haven't said it's only 3 weeks. They've said we're going to
Yeah.
close for the 2 weeks afterwards, and then we'll reassess. So I
Right,
think
yeah.
what they're doing is they're not committing to anything other than those 2 weeks currently, which is, I think,
Yeah, fair
frankly, I think that's totally prudent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
Although
the other thing that we're going to see, and I mean, what is the government going to do? The government is probably not going to shut down malls, but
Nope.
stores are doing it themselves, right? Apple has shut down all their stores worldwide. Lululemon and like a lot of big retailers are shutting down until further notice. A lot of other stores, again, the big chains especially, are going on reduced hours. And so what we're going to see is that the demand, like the supply of retailers is gonna shrink right down to nothing, and so the malls are gonna be closed, and so there's gonna be no choice but to have isolation. I mean, movie theaters are going down to like 50% capacity. You're gonna see them shut down, because now all of a sudden, if you're at 50% capacity, you're not making money. Movie theaters were already not making money, so they're just gonna close. They're just gonna close their doors until this whole thing blows over. Like full capacity.
Quebec has come out with all kinds of crazy restrictions where it's like libraries are closed, gyms are closed, these things are closed, those things are closed. Restaurants can remain open, but they're only allowed 50% of their capacity. And you must have like a meter of separation between each table.
And isn't that how Italy started out?
Yep.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, all kinds of things. I
And then
mean,
slowly now they're in full lockdown, right?
I mean, if you want like my total tinfoil hat thing, like what I'm worried about up here is Trudeau enacting, what is it, the Emergencies Act, what was the War Measures Act, because I mean, his father did it, so he gets to as well, right?
Yeah, it only makes sense.
And I mean, if you start looking at like in the US, there's areas that are already starting to kind of get some martial law-ish type things going on.
Yeah,
so like that's my concern, is that, you know, he'll enact that up here. And then given, you know, all the other stuff going on, he could use that and, you know, total tinfoil hat, black pill moment. Like that's his chance to then go and take the guns from people as a public safety thing, much like they did like when the floods in High River and everything and all that, where it's like, oh, we're just doing this for public safety.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I see your like, I'm following the bouncing ball. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think.
No, but it's like where I'm
sure.
worried, but like,
is it a possible outcome? Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's also a possible outcome that they could just fabricate the entire thing.
Absolutely.
Right? What was the movie Robert De Niro was in? Wag the Dog. They created a fake war.
Created a fake war,
just to solve another problem.
Yeah.
Right. Is it possible? Yes. Do I think they could do it? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not.
No, probably not. Although if any government was going to do it, I could see this one doing it. That's the problem.
Well, and I mean, especially, you know, and again, we can kind of squirrel off on that, but you know, because they've got a minority, they know they're not going to stand for very long. This is kind of their chance to smash and grab. But I really think they've got better things to do. You know, I think they've got like, they don't have enough emergency personnel to both keep the peace and enforce a problem.
Well, yeah,
they're on a fixed clock too before a lot of these first responders decide to stay home and take care of their family versus take care of the public. And that's not a slam against first responders. That's human nature, right? That's happened before.
Especially in the smaller towns where they're going to be overwhelmed and just be exhausted.
Yeah.
I mean, I already know that a friend of mine works bylaw in the area, and they've been put on as essential services because getting parking tickets and making sure you cut your lawn is very important to, you know, peace and order and safety and all of that stuff.
So, but I mean, fact, if you park illegally, coronavirus is coming.
Yeah,
but it also produces a sense of normalcy, right? If people think they can get away with not cutting their lawn, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly a
sidewalk. Then you reduce the rule of law, and as long as we're continuing the most normal life possible, then we're not letting panic set in, right? And if anybody can point to a time in history when panic has ever been the solution, I'll stand corrected, but I'm going to go ahead and say that panic is never the solution, and the closer we are to normal, the further we are from panic.
Yeah. But I mean, those bylaw officers asked if they were going to be getting hazard pay like all the other people because they're going to be expected to be out in the community interacting, and they're like, no. So that's probably not going to last for very long.
No,
it's got to be one or the other, right? Either you're an essential service, you get hazard pay, or you're non-essential service and you get to stay home. Like it's
make up your mind. And we've got a couple other good comments here in the live chats. We've got Blizzard FPV says fear is the best control.
Fear is the
not
only
wrong.
Mhm.
Yep, 100% agree with that.
Yep.
And then we've got another one from Bane Ironhand. It just says emergency powers is the things that worries me the most. If they come for my toilet paper, I need my firearms to stop the butt wipe looting.
Yeah.
I think we had told the guys to read that 3 or 4 weeks ago, just as a bit of a primer for what's coming, and it might be good to remind people to take a look at it. Section 5B allows them to do it, which is a disease on humanity. So
I think we're a really long way from that, but depends on how far it goes.
We're not anywhere near there yet, but it could potentially be a thing.
And not even like virus related, but just people panicking related and wanting the government to look good in front of it, right? Like, we've got to do something, so we better do this to make everyone feel better. Yeah,
that's going to be the number one problem, right? Is people just freaking out and blowing this into a huge thing that it maybe potentially isn't. And once people start freaking out, it's hard to control them and bring them back down. Right?
I mean, you look at the people that are already walking around with surgical masks and or like P100 respirators and like rubber gloves and everything, and it's like, if you don't put your damn goggles on, it's all for naught. Yeah. And here you are just touching your face anyways with your gloved hand. So you're just being paranoid, but you're not even being paranoid in the right way.
You just took your mask off to itch your nose and you put your mask back on.
Or to like take a sip of water or eat something.
Or NHL Play of the Week. I don't know if you guys saw that one, but where the lady was, she was the health minister down the States somewhere. And she was explaining how no matter what, don't touch your face, don't put your finger anywhere near your mouth.
30 seconds later,
she licks her finger to turn the page of the book. I was like, oh, like who still does that? Especially during a pandemic.
And I think like the UK health minister actually has been tested positive for coronavirus.
The Iranian too, the Iranian health minister, and a couple other ones like the irony's not lost on me.
Yeah, and Mrs. Trudeau.
Yeah, I mean that one's kind of less. Honestly, I think that one's less important. I mean that's kind of she's basically she's basically more of a celebrity than a person who should know better. But the people who are in charge of the health system becoming sick, and I think mostly again that points to the reality that we just don't have any control over it. We never have, and we probably never will. It's going to have to run its course. Our saving grace is that summer is coming, and that these viruses don't tend to live terribly long in a hot environment. That's why we have a flu season in the cold and not in the summer.
Yep. Oh, it's true. It's it's going to be interesting, and I think the biggest thing that's going to affect everybody is just the fear of the unknown right now.
Yeah. One of the things that I put in my notes about this is I want to remind everybody that hospitals are where sick people go. Avoid hospitals. Don't go to the hospital.
Yeah.
When you're quarantined and you're doing your thing at home, don't put yourself in a position where you're going to get hurt and have to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
Take it easy. Have a good first aid kit. Be able to patch yourself up. I was out cutting trees today. I've got a couple of cuts and scratches on me. I'm going to take super good care of those. Make sure they don't get infected, so that I don't have to go to the hospital. Right? If a broken bone could turn into a deadly virus if you don't do your thing properly. So,
that's a great point.
It's be smart about your contact, right? Avoid the contact wherever you can. You can order absolutely anything on Amazon. You don't have to go to a grocery store necessarily.
Yeah, and you don't have to open the door. You just tell them to leave it outside.
Just tell them to leave it outside, right? Give it a couple hours, box down, unbox it inside, clean it, bring it inside, right? You can
push it out into the sunlight,
kind of
decontaminate it.
Kind of,
or install some of those UV lights.
And I mean, we kind of make light of it, but it's it's a good way to avoid contact, right? If you can avoid going to those places, going to places where other people are, you're less likely to contract the virus.
Yep. That's a great point. And
if you-
honestly, so I've got just on my property, really the only access by vehicle is up the driveway. So actually tonight I went ahead, I've got an older pickup truck with a topper on it. I went right ahead and parked it across the driveway and just put a sign on there that says, please leave packages in the back of the truck. My wife's a soap maker, so she gets things shipped here rather frequently. As far as our supplies go, we're set up to kind of ride this out for a while. So I don't see myself needing to go to the store. So, why sit around and wait for something to happen? Be proactive about it. I don't have to worry about someone driving up and potentially breaking in or stealing. I don't have to worry about packages now. It's all hundreds and hundreds of feet away from the house. Just peace of mind.
Yeah.
And,
Anyone that didn't get out to the store to pick anything up, great way to do it. And like a lot of grocery stores are still doing delivery of things they have in stock. So if you're listening live and don't have your TP or your canned food or whatever it is, get that order in right now and it'll show up tomorrow.
Yep. I think it's just a matter of days before we see, and we're already seeing it in a few states down here. I think Illinois today just announced that like restaurants and movie theaters are completely closed. So we're going to see a lot of those non-critical businesses and things, basically be shut down for the next few months. It's going to be interesting from a logistics standpoint, what kind of jobs and what line of workers we keep in place. Obviously, we need truckers to deliver these goods to the stores. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they figure this all out and how they actually keep stores supplied. But that was basically the first thing that the Vice President Pence announced tonight was, don't worry, the stores are going to be stocked. We just want to encourage people to buy your normal grocery loads. Take that for what it is.
But then, especially like we said earlier, like Apple and some of these bigger corporations are getting ahead of that curve, and they're already creating company policy that our store is closed. So big grocery chains, they may be allowed to be open. They may be worried about whatever potential legal ramifications to their employees or customers. So they're like, it's not worth it. We're going to just shut down. We've made our fortune on hand sanitizer and toilet paper. We can shut down for 2 weeks, Yeah.
Or it could be the same situation we were discussing earlier where emergency responders just stop showing up to work. Well, those grocery store employees are probably going to stop showing up as well, right?
Well, why would they want to risk getting sick from somebody that breaks quarantine or whatever? There's a rumor floating around from a group I listened to that mentioned that Ontario is talking lockdown tomorrow. So take it for what you want, but I mean whether or not it happens. But that's just a rumor that's been given to me. So.
I think the grocery store employees are far more likely to stop showing up than the first responders.
Yeah. Most likely.
$14 an hour is not enough for me to show up to work when there's a bunch of people sick. And there's nothing on the shelves to sell.
Yeah, so I'm just going to show up to work and get screamed at because there's nothing on the shelves.
I could see your smaller mom and pop shops, like all my rural communities. Your small grocery shops. I could see them doing that, but I think I think the federal government will have to step in at some point because they're not going to let millions of people starve to death, or at least hopefully not.
Yeah.
But we've got to also keep in mind that large corporations like Walmart and they depend on our business. So if we're not going to the stores, if they're not staying open, they go out of business. So at what point, would a federal agency step in and take over of that? So I guess personally, I don't think that's going to be too big of a problem, at least for your larger businesses. But I could definitely see that happening for some of your smaller local businesses.
Yeah, but I mean, that's going to come at a cost, right? Like, I mean, I was talking about with somebody the other day, and they're like, one of the things that people are looking at doing and some of the other countries are doing is like, oh, well, if you pay rent, you don't have to do that.
Right.
And it's like, okay, great. But like, what if my job is owning a bunch of apartment buildings and now nobody needs to pay rent?
Yep.
And now I don't have income. Like, what do I do? And then so like,
you still have a mortgage.
Yeah. Because I own my property. I don't rent it. So like, do I have to pay all of that? And then like, you start looking at, well, then like, basic income or whatever they want to call it, it's like, okay, great. But like, that comes at a cost. So if nobody's working, nobody's paying into the system to put the money in for basic income, but now we're all getting it. We're going to just dig that hole deeper.
Yep.
And, it all sounds great, but like, it just makes us more and more and more dependent on government. And for those that don't know, I'm kind of against that. If you couldn't tell.
No way.
You mean we can't borrow our way into prosperity? Come on now.
I thought that's how it worked.
Yeah, we might be able to, but then our kids are going to pick up the bill for that one.
Deficits are just a way of the government showing success or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's,
anyway, but I have actually noticed a few of the stores arbitrarily cut their own hours as well. I mentioned, or I just saw Jay Lewis's comment. I think I stole his Corona Geddon. Let's see,
Corona Clips.
Yeah, Corona
Clips.
Corona Apocalypse or Corona Apocalypse, something like that. Yeah, I borrowed that expression of him earlier, but he mentioned that grocery stores have already cut hours. Yeah, I've noticed that at a few different stores as well.
Sure.
That
Walmart limited hours from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So that's kind of a big deal. Most of their stores, or I should say a lot of them are 24/7 stores. And actually, my mom's been working at Walmart just outside the Twin Cities there for 19 years. And she said it's the craziest it's ever been, even in terms of Black Friday and stuff. The shelves are just wiped out. I stopped there on my way home Friday, and I couldn't believe just the canned goods were wiped out, all the toilet paper, everything.
It's the whole herd mentality of panic is certainly taken over right now. But
there's be some interesting bartering going on later. Like I've got 50 cans like was it Spam, and I'll trade you for like a couple of cans of beans because I didn't get any of those. And
what I'm waiting for is everybody to line up at the return counter if this blows over.
Yeah, would you take toilet paper back?
No.
Lightly used.
Slightly used, not fully used. The other side's still good.
We're already overstocked on it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but hopefully things blow over. But I think we're going to be in this for the long haul for a little while, and it's going to be something we're going to be dealing with for the foreseeable future, anyways.
Well, I think the good news is, to Gavin's point further on or further back there, is that rather than seizing guns, I'm pretty sure that the law enforcement agencies will be more engrossed in like dealing with petty crime, break-ins, like theft,
I sure hope
assaults, and everything else over the course of the short term than anything else, because people are stupid, and they'll be so tied up with that they won't have time to go and steal like Farmer John's duck gun, right? And Gavin's like more than duck guns.
Sold them all.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I understand you have a thing for bical single shots, right?
Yeah. My old Cooey 22.
That's right. They're they're pretty band proof. So
yeah.
Well, we've bantered on about this for just over an hour, so maybe we will. Maybe we'll bring stuff to a close here. There's all kinds of stuff that we could certainly talk about, and I'm sure we could fill another hour or two on this topic. But we'll bring it to an end for tonight,
so we can talk about it next time, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. We're obviously going to keep talking about this for most likely the foreseeable future as well, because it's going to be something that's pulling out a bunch of people in the prepper world and people that aren't in it are starting to jump on the bandwagon last second. So we're certainly going to be talking about it for the foreseeable future. But let's wrap it up for this evening. I think it's some good info to get out there to everybody, and hopefully, if you haven't already stocked up, you've hopefully got some stuff in your local stores that you can get a few things stocked away and put away. And if that lockdown in Ontario does happen, well, I'll start streaming live 24/7.
We'll just start like have an open live chat forever, and we'll just start randomly ranting and having a grind my gears section and the whole works.
We talked about it in the pre-show, and if a Canada-wide lockdown happens, we're just going to start streaming 24/7 and provide entertainment for everybody. So
I'm going to be so drunk.
Oh yeah. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but if it does, everybody, you're gonna have some endless entertainment.
Yeah.
So with that, let's move into the podcast challenge.
All right, kind of timely. We figured we should just get you to make one last grocery run for needed items, not want items or toilet paper, enough to get by for a month under lockdown. So I would say you probably have one solid day left before panic hits, and make a count, make a list before you go. Only buy what you need, and then let us know if there's anything that you found that all of a sudden you were really surprised you didn't have any of. Let us know. It might help other people realize what they're missing as well.
Yeah, and if you're going to film videos, make sure that it's horizontally so we can watch it properly on our screens. Yeah,
that'd be great. Much appreciated.
Yeah, and if I want to hear these stories about all these mass panics going on, pictures or it didn't happen, right? Like we want to see good pictures. So we'll post them up on the website or the Facebook page for sure.
And we'll discuss them on the next episode.
Yeah.
Let's move into upcoming events that are not running off to the grocery store. and
They're
buying
all
the toilet
canceled.
paper.
Yeah. They're all canceled.
Yeah, this should be interesting, actually. Podcaster Charity Shoot, hosted by Slamfire Radio, July 4th, 2020, in Balmoral, New Brunswick, at the Restigouche Gun Club. This year's charity choice is the Rod Harquail Memorial Fund, and you can now register on practi-score to buy tickets for this event. $25 get you in, and bring lots of cash otherwise for food and other fun stuff while you're there.
All right, and I know we've mentioned the annual Preppers Meet the last at least month and a half or 2 months. It is apparently tentatively canceled. I don't believe it's because of COVID-19, but word is that it may not be going ahead. So we'll provide updates if we receive them. But for now, it's sounding like it's going to be a no-go, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a bummer. Emergency Preparedness Week is May 3rd through the 9th. So tune into the podcast. We'll be talking about everything emergency preparedness, I guess.
the importance of preparedness. I don't know.
It's going to be a completely different topic than any other episode.
Yeah.
All right, and Gavin, you want to read TACCOM?
Yeah, just pulling that up right now. So TACCOM Canada 2020 is September 11th to 13th. Currently still going on. So don't worry, folks. Lots of time between now and then for the whole virus thing to blow over. But the Canadian Pro Gun Podcasters Network will be in attendance at TACCOM 2020. Your favorite podcasters, along with some of your not so favorite ones, will be on hand throughout the show. So make sure to stop by the booth to meet them. I'll be there. A few of the other guys will be there. Pick up some swag. You can check the details down at taccomcanada.tix123 yada yada. Just follow the link in the show notes. Thank you to the 4 people that have bought tickets so far. I know it's a way out, but plan ahead, guys. It's a lot of fun. I was there working the Ragnarok booth last year. I'll be in the podcast one this year. Super fun, good times. Come buy us a drink.
And if you use that link, we get $1. That helps us.
Yeah.
So
we
need
for
a
all
lot
of the stuff.
dollars. Yeah, we need a lot of dollars to pay for the internet because it's
Yeah.
astronomically expensive.
Yeah, and to all wear N95 masks.
Yeah, we're gonna need those as well, and a lot of bottles of rye.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, or maybe just some distilled water because I apparently have a talent to turn that into rye. So
yeah, that works too. Yeah.
All right, we'll move into some shout outs. So I've got one shout out to listener Nathan, just for the kind feedback. He mentioned that listening to our podcast made it so he didn't have to rush out and stockpile food or anything because he was already ready to go for all this. So appreciate that. It was quite a nice comment. That's exactly why I started this podcast up, was to get the word out, and I was kind of happy to see that. So
I got no shout outs this week.
Nothing for me either.
All right then. Well, then we will we'll move into email and iTunes reviews. So we are up to 49 5-stars. We've got 5 4-stars, 2 3-stars, 1 2-star, and 1 1-star. So we've got the entire board covered. It's great. Nice. And that one little guy's still there. He still bugs me, but not as much now that we've got the whole board filled. And we've got an email from a listener. So I'll read it out here. It says, I live in the GTA. Sorry about that. I'm still sort of new to firearms and totally green in terms of prepping. I'm kind of screwed as downtown apartment dweller. And to top it off, I just got diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. He's got 5 months on chemo and giving the disease a pretty good fight so far. So happy to hear that you're giving it a good fight. This is not a woe is me note. I will kill the cancer or it kills me, or the chemo kills us both. So at least it's got a sense of humor. That's great. Got lots of questions, some probably silly and you've heard before, but let's get to work. So the first question, I'll read them out and then I'll let the panel start answering them from there. So first question is, any thoughts on a good radio, electrical, or battery powered? I'd love something so that I can listen on, say, international police band, as well as local. I'm forced to retire, so getting a ham license is needed. I don't mind, but knowing what is happening is important. Couldn't agree more with that. I'm going to have to bug in. I can't handle cold, and chemo is every 2 weeks. Until that gets locked down or terminated, any security suggestions? Should I look at spider locks or something to say secure my door? The door is concrete, for instance. And then can I obtain a stockpile of, say, veterinary or other antibiotics, just in case? Suggestions for sourcing. And then any suggestions for a bug-in guy. I'm 55. I was in good health and fitness level before this hit. We'll try to up my fitness level over the next few weeks or months. Any help would be great. So I'll take on question number 1. Being in the GTA, there are lots of ham radio options for you, lots of repeaters in the area, a very active ham radio club. So I would get in contact with them first off the hop and talk to them about licensing and talk to them about getting access to the repeaters and learning how the network in the GTA operates. As far as any kind of listening to law enforcement or emergency services, you're going to hit a barrier there. Unfortunately, a lot of them are going to be encrypted. Doesn't mean you can't still. A lot of them will be running like P25, so you can get radios that can decrypt them, but it's going to be tricky. And a lot of them are going over to like mobile data terminals and such, so it's going to be just text on the screens of computers in various cars or various vehicles that they're driving in. So you're not going to get much, but doesn't mean you can't hear certain things. So a good option for you would be check out radioreference.com for your specific area and see what frequencies are available, see what frequencies or what kind of encryption is running on them. Flip an email into feedback@prepperpodcast.ca, and once you figure out what's in your area, I'll help you kind of figure out what kind of equipment you need to listen.
Yeah, and you don't need your ham license if you're going to just listen.
Nope, you don't.
But yeah, you can get access, like saying to certain police and other emergency service bands. I have a radio because I do first responder stuff that does that. But like, it's just because one of our guys is handy with radios and knows how to program them. So he just programmed the frequencies into mine. So there's nothing illegal or wrong about doing so. You just won't be able to say anything on it, but you'll be able to hear what's going on.
I mean, you can still transmit it in an emergency situation.
Yeah,
correct.
Yes, for ham radio, yes, you're absolutely allowed to transmit.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. I'm gonna have to bug in. I can't have a cold and chemos every 2 weeks. So looking at locks, there is something called a barricade. You can Google that one as well. That's just basically like the old style, like medieval, bar that comes across the door. Depends if your apartment actually will allow you to drill into the door frame and install extra stuff.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem.
We're just do it anyways.
Do it anyways. Forgiveness versus permission thing.
Yep.
Extra deadbolt. I'm sure they'll allow you to at least put a second deadbolt in. There is like floor mounted like metal barricades you can put in there. Home Depot sells like little $20 ones that flip over the side. They're like an extra deadbolt for you.
Yeah.
Honestly, at this point, if somebody's really determined, they'll get the old Halligan bar in there and they'll open it up anyway.
Mhm.
So all you're doing is delaying it. I mean, so it depends on how much you want to delay the guys for, right?
Yeah, I mean, good locks make good neighbors, but yeah, anyone that wants to get in, it's time. So the better your locks and the better your door and the better everything else, just means it's going to take longer for that person to get in. So, you make it as difficult as possible so that they just go elsewhere, right?
Blizzard FPV in the live chat's got a suggestion. Mentions air nailer and a 2x6.
Yep. Sometimes solutions don't have to be expensive.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like a holy crap, I need to do this right away.
Right this second, yep.
Right.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, there's a lot of things. I would stay away from like those chain things or like the hotel bar with the little knob, because those can be defeated with a playing card and or a rubber band. So not all that effective. But yeah, like a big ass bar that goes across the door, especially if your door opens inward, not outward, is going to work really well.
Check out our Fortifying the Doomstead episode. I think we talked quite a bit about security and locks and doors in that episode.
Yeah, I mean, just what's the quote? The more advanced the thing, the more primitive the solution. Something like that. So like if you have some crazy high-tech lock, like it's going to get defeated by like squirting water into it or something stupid like that.
Or a magnet or whatever.
Yeah. So like the more brutal and medieval you go in terms of your security, the more difficult it's going to be for somebody to get in. And like, there's all kinds of stuff you can do, but like how crazy do you want to get, right? Like, I mean, you could, on all your windows nail 2x4s down with nails also facing the other way so that people can't climb in your windows, but like that's a little excessive.
Maybe for now anyways.
Yeah. Like I'm not saying don't have them ready, but like you don't have to install them right now.
All right. Last one, or next one. Can I obtain a stockpile of, say, veterinary or other antibiotics just in case? I suggest you go to Dr. Joe Alton's Dr. Bones and Nurse Amy YouTube site and watch their stuff on fish antibiotics. And they'll probably have way more information than I could possibly explain to you about how to properly source everything and what medications are good for what. So I would recommend going to watch Dr. Bones stuff that is strictly for entertainment purposes, but it is information for you.
I'd also suggest getting his book and read that over, because he talks about how to use them effectively and all that kind of stuff, which would be useful as well. So,
yeah,
worth the read.
Yep.
And then suggestions for a bug-in guy.
Well, first of all, you're immune compromised for with the chemotherapy. I'm sure they've already given you the riot act about not catching cold or anything else. So for you, food delivery, don't go out.
Yep.
You're bugging in with chemotherapy with or without a coronavirus. So I would say limit your outdoor exposure as best you can, and Amazon is your friend at that point.
Yep.
But so as far as, especially in your situation, you're a bug-in guy no matter what.
Yeah.
So
no choice in the matter. It's make sure you got enough food storage and water stocked up, ready to go, and ride out the storm.
Well, that's about it.
Yeah. I think that hopefully we've answered the questions enough for you. And if need anything else answered, feel free to follow up with another email. And anybody else out there that's got questions, absolutely fire an email into feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. We're always happy to answer questions that you may have, and put it out to the panel, and you can get a whole round table of answers for any question you may have or may come across. So with that, I will bring episode number 59 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Submit a review. It helps other people find us.
And we record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click on the notifications tab. That will give you alerts when we're going live. If you got any questions or advice for me, you can email me at tyler@prepperpodcast.ca.
Gavin, where can everybody find you?
I mean, there was a bunch of places you would have been able to find me live and in person, but they've all been canceled. But as of right now, the best place to find me is you can find me on the Instagrams at urbex_GTA.
Right on. You can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. And you can also find myself and Gavin on Canadian Patriot Podcast on iTunes, and YouTube on Monday nights. There you can find us discussing why government waste triggered my Asperger's.
All right. So you can find me at rapidsurvival.com. While you're attempting to purchase some prepper gear, I'm a little low on stock currently. But I do still have live chat that operates. So if you want to chat with me there and send me angry messages about being out of stock on everything, join the crowd. And you can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. And until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and